Well, hey there guys, it's your good buddy Uncle Ben back again with another Patreon exclusive lesson just for you guys, my loyal and truest believers here on the Patreon page. First things first, thank you guys so much for all the support that you guys give here on the Patreon page. It really means the world to me. And second things first, I have an idea I want to run by you. A couple days ago, I made a post there on the Patreon page with an idea for a new video series. I don't have a title for it or anything like that, but the basic idea is that viewers of my channel could send me videos of whatever it is that they're working on, whether that be a cover of a solo or some riffs, or maybe even an original composition or something like that. And basically what I would do is I'd make a video where I watch it and then kind of give you guys some critiques on things you could do to improve it. Maybe by, working on the phrasing, maybe there's a different picking pattern you could try to make something a little bit easier for you to do. Little nuancy stuff like transcription corrections, working on vibrato, all those kinds of things. Just basically me kind of like reviewing your video and telling you how you could make it better. I think it'd be a really fun series that I could use to stay in touch with you guys and see what it is that you've been working on in your own time and help you improve your playing. And I got a lot of positive feedback about the idea, but there was one catch. A lot of people, especially beginners, are really hesitant to put their face and their playing and stuff like out there on YouTube and brave the absolutely vicious world of, mean YouTube commenters, which I completely understand. So rather than asking you to put your playing and stuff on display in front of the, 300,000 something subscribers that I have to my channel, I've decided to at least start off by keeping this series a little more localized. I think just to give it a trial run, these are going to be Patreon exclusive videos for a while, because I think if you're watching this video and you're part of my Patreon community, we're all here for the same purpose. We're all here to get better with our guitar playing. We're not out to just shit talk each other and talk bad about each other's playing or anything like that. If you're here, it's because you want to become a better guitar player and I want to help. So for the time being, that series is just going to be between me and you guys. But even at that, I know that some people are still going to be nervous about it, so don't worry, I've got you covered. Whenever you send me your video, I'll be sure to, crop it so that your face isn't in the video. That way we can just see your hands and your guitar playing and stuff. I don't have to mention names and reveal anybody's identities or anything like that. So hopefully that'll help take the pressure off some. So if you're watching this video and you're interested in participating in this and getting some help with your own playing and stuff, just be sure to send me your video to benellerguitars@gmail.com. It can just be phone audio. It doesn't have to be like super high production quality or anything like that. Just something that I can see and hear you clearly with. Just be sure to send your video to benellerguitars@gmail.com and I'll select one to do as kind of a trial run for this video series. But enough about plans for the future. Let's talk about plans for now, because I'm guessing that you're here because you watched This Is Why You Suck at Guitar 21, You Don't Know the Minor Scale. You've learned how to smother and cover the neck of your guitar and all those different minor scale patterns that we talked about, and now you need to learn how to use them efficiently. And that's just what we're going to talk about today. But just like any other tool, a scale pattern is only useful if you know how to use it. So in this video, we're going to talk about utilizing those patterns and targeting certain notes within them to make your soloing a lot more powerful and melodic. Now to go along with this post, I've made a simple rock and roll backing track in the neighborhood of A minor that you guys can download down there in the attachment section of this post. Learning the key of A minor really well is very important for a couple of different reasons. For one, it's the key of Van Halen. It sounds freaking cool. But there's another trick too that happens whenever we learn how to play in the key of A minor really well that we'll talk about later in the video. Basically, if you know this key well, you can learn all the notes on the neck extremely easily. It's really cool. So just like we did in the original video, let's start off here by talking about the linear, one string A minor scale pattern here. We're gonna start off on the note A and play that signature series of steps and half steps. So it's root note A, step, half, step, step, half, step, and then one more step, and we're back at the root note again. That is the A minor scale. That's the scale we're going to be using today to go along with the backing track right there. And you'll notice whenever you play that you end up playing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, the all natural musical alphabet. No sharps, no flats, nothing but net. When you're playing linear like this, you really have to stay present and think, what note am I on? How far away is that next note? And so on. This scale pattern's greatness lies in its simplicity, because if you can't play some nice sounding melodic stuff on a single string, why should we be worrying about using all six, right? You gotta do simple before you can do complex. and this forces you to do it. Okay, so let's hear how that scale sounds over the backing track. Now, I'm gonna be starting off on the G2, that A note, but you could start here on this A note or this one, any A note that you know. See what it sounds like. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So you could hear that every one of those notes sounded great, but some of them sounded more greater. So for example, maybe this E note happened to sound really nice, while its next door neighbor, F, even though it's in key, doesn't really sound great on its own, right? That's because while that note was in key and in the scale, yes, it was not in chord. And this is one of the greatest flaws that every guitar player has to fight in their lifetime, is learning how to think less about playing in key and more about playing in chord. Okay, so let me explain here. The backing track that we're playing against is all just kind of centering itself around an A minor kind of tonality. Now, it's not strumming an A minor chord or anything like that, but if I was to sum up the flavor of that entire riff that just kind of repeats through the whole track, it's definitely got that A minor kind of sound to it. Over that, we are using the A minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. But the A minor chord tonality that we're playing over doesn't necessarily get along with every one of those notes. Chords are very self-centered and only care about what they're saying. It's kind of like if you ever had a conversation with somebody where you can tell all they ever want to do is talk about themselves. All that chords ever want to do is hear about themselves in the form of us choosing notes from the scale that are already inside of the chord. Now, you don't have to know a ton about chord construction and triads and stuff like that to figure out what notes are in an A minor chord. You can just take a look at any old A minor chord that you know, and you'll find that all that's ever inside of them is the notes A, C, and E. A is its root note, C is what we would call its flat third or minor third, and E is its fifth. Those are the three notes that are in an A minor chord. So those are the three notes that are going to sound the best when we play them in the scale. Okay, I'll demonstrate again here using that A minor scale and the backing track. So we're going to talk about notes here that are in the chord, A, C, and E, and notes that are not in the chord, which is all the other ones. A, in the chord, sounds good. B, not in the chord, kind of ambiguous. C, back in the chord, sounds good. D, not in the chord. E, very strong, it's in the chord. F, not so much. G, it's in the scale, but it's not in the chord. Then we're back to A again. So you'll notice in there that the notes that sounded the strongest were the ones that were already in the chord. That means that as we use these scales, if we make a deliberate effort to start or end phrases on some of those chord tones, it's just always going to sound a lot more melodic and relevant. I'll do a phrase here where maybe I start off on the A note and then end it up here on the E note. I could do one that starts off on one of the other chord tones, like maybe the C note, and leads its way all the way up to the root note A, and it's going to sound really strong. Always make a deliberate effort to drive your phrasing towards starting or ending, or both, on a chord tone. The minute that the chord or the riff changes to more like a D minor feel, right? Something like that, I would then want to target the D minor chord notes that appear in the A minor scale. Again, if you look in a D minor chord, you see the notes D, F, A. I would want to then target those notes inside of this big old scale pattern. Don't be happy just to say I'm in the key of A minor and play all the notes in the key of A minor. Think to yourself, I'm playing in the key of A minor, so you know your scale. I'm playing over the A minor chord. It's got the notes A, C, E in it. Those are the ones I should be hammering away at. Here's what I really want you guys to do with this backing track and some of the concepts that we're talking about. I want you guys to play against this backing track every day. And what I want you to do is to pick a single string, right? And play that A minor scale up and down it against the backing track. You know, it's always best to learn new concepts while you're improvising and using them in a musical context. But anyway, pick a string, like let's say the high E string, find the A note, Think about the step pattern. Root, step, half, step, step, half, step, step. Think about those notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and make a deliberate effort to solo hitting those chord tones of A, C, E against it, like this. A to C to E, right? Simple stuff. C, A, E, A, E, C, A. You get the idea. Anyway, do that every single day on a different string. Stay conscious of what note you're on, where you're moving to, try to find those A, C's, and E's, and so on. And what you're going to end up doing is accidentally learning every note on the entire fretboard extremely well. Because think of it this way. Okay, 12 notes in music, right? 7 of them are the natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The remaining 5 are the sharps and flats. You don't need to learn the sharps and flats, y'all. You need to learn the naturals really freaking well. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If you're playing this scale, using this backing track, you're going to learn those natural notes really well. And then think of it this way. If you know where every A is, don't you also know where every A flat and A sharp are? If you know where every D note is, haven't you also learned where D flat and D sharp are? You get what I'm saying? By learning those natural notes, the sharps and flats will just fill themselves in, and you'll finally have learned the notes on the freaking fretboard. The hidden power of the key of A minor or its relative major, C major, it works the same way, just natural notes work in that key, is seriously what helped me actually finally go from wrestling with all the notes on the board to having them like stone cold memorized and able to recall them without even, thinking twice about it. So I know this is going to work for you guys too. This is something that I show my students in our private Skype lessons and stuff all the freaking time. Anybody that's taken lessons from me has gone through this whole process, and they learn the notes like crazy, better than you ever have before. So anyway, long story short, use this track, natural notes, target A, C, E as you go through here, and you're going to learn all the notes on the neck in seriously just like a couple weeks if you do it every day. Okay, so I've talked about the importance of those chord tones and stuff, but that's not to say that the other notes in the scale aren't useful too. We can use those non-chord tones that appear in the scale to build up some really cool melodic tension. A, B, C. But by hanging on that B note and just sort of letting that tension sort of sit there, if you think about it, that note is in between two chord tones. A is in, B is out, C is in. You're just kind of sitting there in between two things that are going to sound good. So it keeps the listener's ears perked up knowing that the note's either going to go one way or the other and resolve itself. And that can be a really cool thing. Another really cool thing that happens whenever you target those chord tones of A, C, E is it also teaches you some of the most tense sounding notes you can use in your solo. Because basically, the notes that are always going to sound the most dramatic and tense are the ones that are a half step away from a note that's in. Okay, so in other words, A, right? That's a really in note. Maybe I put it up here. That's the root note of the chord. Sounds really strong. Now listen, if I hit the note right behind it, a half step away from it, the G sharp note right here, that note's going to sound ultra tense and just beg to be resolved up a half step to A. This is something you've heard Marty Friedman do a million times, like this. It's kind of like the intro of like the Tornado Solo, right? By playing that note that's just a half step outside of that really important chord tone and bending it up, like what I did there at the first of that solo, it's a really cool sound you can play around with because it sounds ultra tense and also just sounds to the listener like you know exactly where you're driving the car, Because when you bring it up to that A note and it's back in, it sounds super strong. We can do this with any of the other chord tones too. So like let's say the C note, I could just play the note a half step down from it, the B note, and either slide it up or maybe bend it up a half step. All right, it's a good sound. Here's the E note. Again, that's a really Marty sound that I like a lot. call those notes danger notes, you know, the ones that are like a half step down from a chord tone. They always sound really dramatic and really cool. And again, make you sound like you're in control, because if you know where the best notes are, you know where the worst notes are. And when you dig into those, it can sound super sick. And as you go through and practice soloing with the single string, I want you guys to really value simplicity and melody, because early on, whenever I was learning scales, I was just learning how to play them super fast and all the, you know, shreddy licks and stuff like that. And then when it was time to do something other than, you know, just shred and floor it, I sounded like I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I'd play stuff like this. Just really lame, characterless stuff until I could get to my next super shredder lick or whatever. But like I said, if you can't do simple, don't even dream about doing complicated. Try to play great melodic things that start on chord tones and end on chord tones. And you'll notice as you start playing shreddy or faster stuff, you're still going to have that thought in the back of your head. So you're going to be playing hot licks that actually go somewhere. Unlike what I was doing at the time, which is just playing notes that were in key and not caring where they fell. Soloing while targeting those chord tones is also a great way to get to know your pocket octave shapes. Let's use the A minor scale shape that we start here at the 12th fret A. Now again, as I play through that, I'm not just thinking of that as like, all of these notes are good. They're all good, but I'm also remembering that some of them are even better. But the cool thing is if you happen to land on or near that G note, you're just a whole step slide or bend away back to the Holy of Holies, the root note. And in fact, a way that you can kind of look at this here is that you're never far away from a chord note. 7 notes in the scale, right? 3 of them are perfect for the chord, A, C, E. The remaining 4, not so much. But what that means is that even if you happen to land on one of the notes that's out, if you just take it up to the next note in the scale, you're probably going to be good to go. And again, if you happen to land on the G note, then you can just take it up another step and you're back on the root again. Let me show you what I mean. So for this example, I'm going to solo against the track there using the A minor pocket octave shape up here at the 12th position. And I'm going to make a very deliberate effort to always land on one of the out notes. Again, in, out, in, out, in, out, out. I'm going to always land on one of the out notes. And the cool thing is if I happen to land there, well, it's always going to be right next door to one of the cool chord notes. Check this out. A. B, A, I'm back in. B, I could also just take it up to C and that's back in. D, that's okay. E is right here, back in. G, who cares? A. If you happen to land on one of the non-chord tones, just go up to the next note in the scale. You're probably good to go from there. The only one that's kind of tricky is the F note, because if you land on the F note, that's out. Also, the next note in the scale, the G note, is out. But again, easy to resolve, right? So the cool thing is if you happen to land on that F note in a lick, remember, you can just go down a half step and you're back at E again. Back to sounding solid again, right? So again, you're never far away from a good note. That's something to remember. A scale is a very small place. You only play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes, and then you're starting back over again. Scales are small. We learn big scale patterns, but in reality, they're all pretty small neighborhoods where just about every other note is exactly what you want to be hitting. So if you find yourself in the middle of a scale pattern and you know it's time to like land on a note and resolve your solo or something like that, but you panic because you're like, oh no, I'm nowhere near A, I'm here on this D note. Just take a look around and realize I could either go down to the C note and be right back in the chord. I could either go up to the E note and be right back in the chord. Oh shit, I landed on B. Cool. You're right there close to A, or you're right here close to C. You're never far away from a relevant note to play. But for some players, especially if you've been a very shape and pattern-based player for a long time and can't really get your head around thinking about all those notes, it's totally okay. There's other ways around this stuff. They're a little bit more limited, but you can still use them. One of the first ways that I started getting used to targeting chord tones while soloing in a scale pattern is by searching for the hidden chord shape hiding inside of a scale pattern. So let's take a look at that standard form A minor scale that we learned. This one right here, right? So So that's a standard form A minor scale in a nice boxy shape. And when I look at that scale shape, it's really easy for me to see an A minor chord that I know in there, namely this 5th position, A minor bar chord, the one where you just bar the 5th fret, then put down the 7s on the A and D strings. It's really easy to see that chord shape hiding inside of this. There's one note. There's that 7th A. There's that 7th D. There's the 5th G that's in my bar. There's the 5th B that's in my bar. And there's the 5th high E that's in my bar. Again, this shape is just hiding right there in plain sight. So if you're a very visual kind of learner and player, you can always rely on playing your standard form scale shape or whatever, and always driving it towards one of the notes that's in that chord shape. I'll give you an example here, staying inside of that scale pattern. There's one, right? Keep going. There's 2 notes, resolving to a note that's in the chord. Here's one. Again, there's one right there. There's one. Ending one right there too. So again, the cool thing is you can just visualize that chord shape and just say, well, land on one of those notes and you're good to go. And you can do that with any other shape that you know for an A minor chord. So let's say, for example, you know this 12th position bar chord shape for an A minor with its root note here on the A string, right? Well, if you can visualize that while you're playing your pocket octaves, or even your 1-string scale patterns and stuff like that, and just always try to land on one of the notes that's right there in that chord shape, you're gonna be good to go. I gotta start off here using the B string linear shape from its A note. I'm gonna make a conscious effort to land on that note because that note is in my A minor chord shape, right? Might sound something like this. 2, 3, A. Again, real melodic tone. Oh no, I landed on B. Cool, it's right next to C, right? Again, you're always near a chord tone. And if you can visualize those different shapes of chords, A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor, any of those that you've learned, you're gonna have an easy time finding the right notes to land on. And of course, with some of the really big scale shapes like the 3-note per string and 4-note per string scale shapes, those can get a little bit trickier just because they're so massive. But again, just try to visualize the in notes that we play through here. Remember, almost every other note is good. In, out, in, out, in are 2 outs. Then we're in, out, in, 2 outs, in, out, in, out. Yeah, that's why we never land on that note. I mentioned that in the original video right there. It's an out note, it's not in the chord, right? And you can visualize this in your 4-note per string as well. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, bad, good, and so on. And again, especially if you've done enough of that linear soloing practice to where you know the note names really well, this is gonna be no problem for you whatsoever. So there you go, guys, some super tips for how you can take some of those scale patterns and turn them into music. Again, it's only as good as how well you know how to utilize it. So as you go through these scale patterns and target those chord tones, you're just gonna be sounding more and more melodic and more like you really know what you're doing when you start shredding up and down these things. Thank you guys again, as always, for the support. It means more to me than I can adequately express to you. And I wanna just keep giving back more and more to you guys in the form of special bonus videos. And like I said earlier, that lesson series where I get to watch you guys play something that you're working on and help you polish it up and make it better and better. I'm really excited about that. So if you got something that you're working on that you want some help with and don't want to be, judged by the entire internet or anything like that, be sure to send me your video to benellerguitars@gmail.com. I'll check it out and get to work on making a video for it that I'll post up here on Patreon soon. Well, guys, it's been fun as always, but you know what time it is. It's time to get away from the computer, get your guitar, and play nice. Be sure to get all of the scale charts, from the This Is Why You Suck at Guitar 21 post that I made the other day. Grab the backing track that I made and solo away. It's going to improve your playing and make differences that you never even dreamed of possible in your playing in just a couple of weeks, seriously. Be patient, have fun with it, and let me know what you thought about this video in the comments section below. Time to shred. Less clicking, more picking.